In this video, I'm going to show you how to download and install Android Studio, which is the program we're going to be using to write our Android applications in this course. And I'm going to be doing that on a Mac. So if you're running a Windows or Linux machine, there is a separate video for your operating systems in this section of the course. And in that scenario, I suggest you watch the relevant video instead of this one. Alright, so first things first, we can install Android Studio by just doing a search in Google for install Android Studio. We want to take the first developer.android.com link. We're going to click on that. And click over here to download the latest version of Android Studio. So this will generally show the latest version. You can see 3.5 for Mac. So I'm going to click on that, download Android Studio. I'm going to check the checkbox that I agree to the conditions. Click on download. I'm going to save that in my downloads folder. So a newer version is already available in what's called the Canary channel, and what that means is that's a pre-release version for testing. If it's released by the time you watch this video and it showed up where it's currently showing 3.5 for me, then download the latest version. But at this point, this is the latest version. And keep in mind that we do try and keep these videos up to date, but with 4 or 5 new versions being released each year, we can't update the course quickly enough. The good news is though that generally if you choose the latest version, you'll be good to go. Alright, so I'm just going to wait for this download to complete. You can see it's nearly finished in the bottom left hand corner. Once it's finished, we need to open the DMG file. So I'm just going to click it. You may need to navigate to the folder where it was installed. I'm going to close down the browser because we're finished with that now. And I'm going to drag it over to the applications folder, which is of course the standard way to install a Mac application. We'll give that a moment to complete. Alright, I'm going to close that down. Now we can either go navigate to the applications folder, or I can just do a command space and type Android, just enough for Android Studio. You can see it's showing version 3.5. I'm going to press enter there, and that should start Android Studio for us. Because it's the first time I've downloaded Android Studio, we get this pop-up. Importantly, you can see it says developer.android.com, so it's coming from the official site. I'm going to click on open. Now you may get a security error here. If that happens, just go into the system preferences and click on security, click on general and then allow it to run. In my case, I haven't got that, so I'm just going to open it. As this is the first time installation, there's no previous settings to import, so I'm just going to click on OK. You can see that Android Studio is now starting. Now we're going through a wizard at this point, so I'm going to click on next here. I'm going to click on and choose custom, next. We've got a choice of themes here. We can choose the light theme with the light background or dark killer as a dark background. That's generally better on the eyes, but I'm going to leave it on light because that's good and it looks better on a video. Click on next. I'm going to choose, make sure everything's checked. I'm going to check also Android virtual device, noting that Android Studio, the installation and setup wizard has automatically found the Android SDK location or chosen an Android SDK location, and we'll talk more about that in future videos. Click on next. Here we need to specify the amount of memory we're going to allocate to Haxum. So what is Haxum? Well, you can see that there's a link there to refer to the Intel Haxum documentation for more information. What it is a program that's been written by Intel, the people who actually make the Intel CPUs, and it speeds up the performance of the x86 emulators. In other words, it gives you the ability to run Android applications on your Mac, and it speeds them up by using this tool. So if you didn't have an Intel CPU, you wouldn't be able to do that. But all current Macs, and actually Macs going back quite some time, do have Intel CPUs as of the time I'm recording this, so we won't have a problem. So the only choice here is to decide how much memory. Now you can see the default here, because I've actually got 64 gig in my computer, choice of 2 GB has been chosen automatically. And if you've got more than 8 GB of RAM in your Mac, I would suggest you leave it as the default, which will probably be 2. But if you've got less, then you may need to allocate to less depending on the amount of RAM you've actually got. In other words, you might need to go down to 1 GB or even 512 megabytes. Generally, I would say that if you've got 8 GB of RAM or more, just leave it on the default. And if you've only got 4 GB or something like that in your Mac, you may seriously want to consider adding more RAM to it. RAM is quite inexpensive these days, and it's highly recommended that you have 8 GB or more to get the most out of Android Studio and using that on a Mac. Alright, so I'm going to leave it on the default as I mentioned and click on next. We've got a list of things that are going to download for us now. Click on finish. Now the reason it's doing more downloading here is that we actually downloaded the Android Studio program, and that was the actual program that's running now, the setup wizard, and also the Android Studio product that you'll be using. But we're now downloading the SDK, which is the software development kit, and that's the actual software that enables you to write Android applications. So it's actually separate and distinct from the Android Studio installer, and that's why we're doing another set of downloading here now. So I'm going to pause the video and I'll come back once downloading is done. So you can see that we're getting towards the end of the downloading and unzipping now. Okay, it's now running the Intel Haxum installer, as you can see on screen. I need to enter my password. And again, Haxum is a tool that is going to make the Android emulator, which enables you to run Android applications without having an Android phone on your computer. It enables that to run a lot faster than it ordinarily would without the Haxum installer, so it's highly recommended to use that. Okay, you can see that's now finished. We can see silent installation pass. At this point I can click on finish, and we now see the welcome screen for Android Studio. In the next video we'll look at configuring Android Studio now that it's been installed and the SDK has been downloaded. The steps from now on are largely the same regardless of which operating system you're using, so skip over the next video in the playlist because that covers installing Android Studio on a Linux machine, and go straight to the video titled Configure Android SDK on all three platforms and we can continue the configuration. See you in the next video.